The Transnet strike, which has entered its 8th day, putting pressure on the ailing economy. Satawu and Untu have rejected the latest wage offer of 4.5%, labelling it an insult to workers. The strike has stopped movements of goods in and out of the harbour. Joining us to make sense of this developing story is Labour lawyer Michael Bigraim, speaking to us. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, I'm sure you've been watching the back and forth with the unions and the employer, as well as 3 ministers being roped in to help broker some sort of an agreement. But as the agreement stands, Satawu and Untu are not willing to budge. They were looking at a 12% increase, but we're now learning from the Minister Togo Didiza that unions have now come down to a single digit, although we don't know what that final digit is. What are your thoughts around this as you analyze it?
Well, we're already about 8 days now into the strike. Already it is destroying the economy. You must understand that we're losing approximately R1 billion rand per day in a strike of this nature. And of course, it's got a knock-on effect. What has happened, of course, is that the Minister of Employment and Labour has now dragged in 2 of his colleagues to help him because he's been completely ineffectual. And we've seen this in the past with him. We have legislation in South Africa under our Labour Relations Act that allows the minister to act decisively. This is an industry that can destroy the country. It's an industry that's certainly destroying itself. And we can't really wait. This is a norm for the Department of Employment and Labour. They mess around. They wait for the parties to almost destroy themselves. And in the process, we're destroying our country. We certainly have destroyed half the economy. I can't understand why they don't actually take the power that they've got. They've got Section 150A of the Labour Relations Act, where they can instruct the commissioner, the senior commissioner, the director of the CCMA, Cameron Moriarty. They can direct him to have an advisory arbitration done. And if one or more of the parties, just one of them, says, all right, we agree to that, then in terms of that 150D, they can make that advisory award compulsory. The public needs to know what's going on. Many of us seem to think that this doesn't affect us. It's got something to do with the ports. And I speak to many of my colleagues and says, it doesn't affect me. I'm not dealing with the ports at all. It affects all of us. It's going to affect the price of food, of staples, of non-consumables. Everything will be affected in South Africa. And we've got to couple that. It's a completely incompetent government that we're seeing because we've got to couple that to blackouts, investor confidence, which is at an all-time low. We're on the cusp of grey listing. And now we add this to it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. In the past, the minister had to be pushed and kicked, screaming, to actually invoke the Section 150 of the Labour Relations Act. Well, we now need to invoke him. As a country, we need to stand up and say this is now ridiculous. They're 2 bull elephants having a fight with each other. And, of course, we, the grass, we get trampled. The rest of the country gets trampled. That's not good news for anyone. It's not good news for the economy. It's not good news for the people. It's not good news even for government.
Are you saying that the Transnet workers' demands are just unjustifiable at this point? I mean, you speak about the impact on the economy, which has really been, highlighted. But when it comes to the union's demands, are you saying that they don't make sense and that, unions should simply accept what Transnet and government is offering on the table and carry on as normal?
No, I'm certainly not saying that. Mm-hmm. I'm saying we need an arbitrator to take into account everything. The unions are saying our expenses as people, as workers in South Africa, our expenses are going up and we can't afford to live. That's what they say.
Yes.
Government is saying we can't afford to pay you, we don't have the money. So you need someone or a team of people and an advisory arbitration panel to come in and take all the facts into account and actually come to a via media solution. I'm certainly not saying I don't know enough about the workers' demands. I don't know enough about their needs. And I certainly don't know enough about what government can afford or not. What I do know is that we have, in the wisdom of government over the years, has put together a Labour Relations Act. The Labour Relations Act has predicted destructive strikes of this nature. A destructive strike is not just destroying a particular company or an employer or those employees only. This is affecting our whole country. Every single person, you and I, will be paying more for potatoes because of the strike, not because of anything else. And the problem that we've got is that the minister is scared to use the legislation because he's going to irritate the unions. He uses them as voting fodder in 18 months' time when there's an election. So the Minister of Employment and Labour is holding back as much as he can, but in the meantime, everyone's being destroyed because the workers aren't getting paid whilst they're out on strike. They're not earning any money. So the workers are suffering. The employer's suffering because they're not doing their work and there's a backlog. The economy is suffering because we're losing R1 billion a day, if not more. I think it's R1 billion calculated just for the ports.
Yeah,
so
because Transnet, just speaking today, the CEO was saying that for this 12% to be carried through, Transnet cannot afford to do that because it will be unsustainable in the long run.
I fully understand that, but the unions aren't hard and fast on the 12%. You heard that today, in fact, they announced they'll go down to single figures.
Yes.
Let's say they go to 9 or 8%. Is that affordable? We need people to come in and actually now work the numbers and be level-headed about it instead of being hot-headed about it. And I think who's standing in the way is the government. It's not the workers. The government's standing in the way. The government should say, we've got legislation. Let's put our faith in an advisory panel who'll give an advisory award so that we've taken science into account, we've taken the cost of living into account, and we've taken the country into account. Because at the moment, no one's taking anyone into account.
Yeah.
So you certainly cannot blame the unions for making the demands. That you can't blame. And you can't blame government, on the other hand, to say we can't afford. But now there's special legislation specifically for an issue of this nature.
Thank you so much.
Why aren't we using it?
Yeah, we're going to, important question, why aren't we using it? Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for weighing in on this discussion. Labour lawyer Michael Bigraim is speaking about the ongoing Transnet strike, saying government has the muscle to put it all to an end. We continue to